One time I pulled up to a stop sign on a Yamaha FJR I used to have. My pant leg got caught on a clip on the side of the motorcycle, and I couldn't get my foot down. This week on MCrider, let's talk about those embarrassing drops and how you can avoid them. Hey, my name's Kevin. I'm the host here at MCrider, where I release a weekly video to help make you a better rider. Hit the subscribe button and hit that bell icon while you're at it. You'll get a notification for every new video that we release every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Central. So drops are embarrassing, right? They can happen to the best of us. What really makes them embarrassing is when they happen in front of other people, or you sit in front of a camera and you tell thousands of people about your stupid drop when your pant leg got hung up on the side of a motorcycle. But this week we'll look at 4 common types of drops on a motorcycle. So we're not talking about crashes here. We're talking about slow speed drops, 2 to 3 miles per hour or slower, and some ways that you can avoid it. You know, as bad as those earlier drops were, I don't think I've ever seen one quite like this. I think at this point, this poor guy is just pausing to contemplate his choices in life. So one of the first things that we'll talk about when we mention drops, and you see this frequently as a rider coach, is people not knowing how to properly use the kickstand or the side stand. It happens occasionally in class. Somebody will pull up at the end of an exercise. They won't put the kickstand down, even though I remind them every time that they need to do so. They'll forget to put it down and fall over with the motorcycle. Right? So you want to make sure that you put the kickstand down and up when you get ready to leave. But the key is you want to be seated on the motorcycle before you operate the kickstand. Occasionally you'll see a rider bring the bike upright, lift the kickstand up, and then try to mount the motorcycle. But you always want to be seated on the motorcycle before you get the kickstand up or down, and that will become second nature after a while. But initially, some new riders forget to do that. Another important thing with the kickstand that could lead to a drop is not having the motorcycle on a firm surface or the bike not being in gear when you come to a stop. So if you're on an incline, particularly one that's facing down, you leave the bike in neutral, you go to put it on the side stand, the bike may roll forward. So first gear acts as your emergency brake on a motorcycle. Leave the bike in gear when you come to a stop, and make sure that the surface is solid that you're putting the side stand down on. You don't want to park where there's an incline and your side stand has to go off the side of that incline in order to find surface. And if you're parking particularly on gravel or soft surfaces, you may want to have a side stand puck or a smashed soda can or something that you can put underneath the side stand to help keep the bike upright. Another common reason for a lot of people dropping their motorcycle is simply where they're looking. And remember, the whole time you're on a motorcycle, you want to keep your head and eyes up, and you want to look out on the horizon. If you look down while you're riding a motorcycle, your equilibrium is going to be off, and you're more likely to drop a motorcycle when you're looking down. So if you keep those head and eyes up, you're mentally, you get a picture of the horizon, and it helps you keep better balance. As soon as you look down, the motorcycle may likely go in that direction. Remember, the bike's going to go where you're looking, and if you're looking at the ground, it may end up there as well. The third thing that causes a lot of drops on a motorcycle is your foot slipping on the pavement. Now, this could be due to oil or something on the surface of the road, or gravel if you stop on a gravel road, or just gravel out on the road. It could also be due to the type of shoes that you're wearing. So shoes are important when you're riding. Not only do you want foot and ankle protection, but you want something with a non-slip surface so that you've got the traction to hold the motorcycle upright when you come to a stop. So a lot of riders don't think about that. They'll just put a pair of boots on, especially if they're the type with that smooth leather sole. Not only will that sole wear out real quick riding a motorcycle, but it's not going to offer you much traction when you go to put your foot down at a stop. Now, the fourth one that we'll talk about is something that I can't think of any quicker way to drop a motorcycle, and that's to have the handlebars turned when you come to a stop, especially if you go heavy to the front brake while those handlebars are turned. That's a recipe for a drop just about every time, having the handlebars turned and using the front brake. This is a classic example of a rider making that mistake. You can see the handlebars are still turned when he goes to the front brake. So the key to avoiding that type, one, we talked about keeping your head and eyes up. You want to be looking down the road, but when you come to a stop, you come to a complete stop, you want to make sure those handlebars are square. And what I mean by that is that front tire pointing straight ahead. If it's got even just a slight turn to those handlebars, especially on a heavy motorcycle, it's going to want to lean in that direction. So on slow speed stops like that and slow speed control, you want to avoid using the front brake. Use the rear brake to get the motorcycle to a stop, but make sure the motorcycle is straight up and down, the handlebars are pointed in a straight direction, and your head and eyes are up, that you're looking across the road, that you can clearly see the horizon. A lot of motorcycle drops are simply the rider's inability to handle their motorcycle at slower speeds. Now, I'll link to some slower speed training videos that we've got. We've got some exercises in the field guide that can help you work on that. But just to recap, you want to get that clutch in the friction zone. So if I've got the clutch squeezed all the way in, I've got no power to the rear tire. As I slowly begin to release that clutch, at some point I'm going to get partial power to that rear wheel, and it's going to start moving me forward. That is the friction zone, right? So I release that clutch out, motorcycle starts moving forward. That's the friction zone. That's the point where I want to hold or keep that clutch in that friction zone. In addition to that, I can use a little bit of rear brake, keep my head and eyes up. One simple training exercise that you can do on a parking lot is just riding a motorcycle as slow as you can. Shoot for 2 to 3 miles per hour or a decent walking pace on a motorcycle. Slide the clutch out till it gets into that friction zone. Use a little bit of rear brake. Keep your head and eyes up and ride the motorcycle in a straight line at a slow walking pace. That'll help you control the motorcycle and learn to develop those skills at slow speed maneuvers. You can add to that U-turns or some weaving back and forth as you develop the skill, but you want to get used to that friction zone and riding your motorcycle at slow speeds, and I'll have links to some videos that help train you in those areas as well. So what about you? Have you had any embarrassing drops? Do you want to confess like I did at the beginning of this video? Leave a comment below and tell us about your drops. I'll be looking for them down there. Hopefully I can get a laugh at your expense as well. Until next week, guys, this is Kevin with MCrider, and we'll see you on the road. There are multiple ways to support the channel. You can become a member on YouTube at mcrider.com/member, or support the channel through Patreon at mcrider.com/support. Either way, you'll get full access to the forum and the field guides, which will further the training that we release here on a weekly basis.